Amici di Comicus, siamo al Comicon di Napoli, grazie a Mirage Comics abbiamo la possibilità di intervistare un grandissimo artista, David Mack. Hello David.
Hello.
How are you?
So happy to be here. Yeah.
It's your first time in Naples, right?
My first time in Naples. Yeah. Ciao, amici italiani. I flew into Milan, went to Como. We drove to Florence, Perugia, Rome, and then to Naples.
Okay, very good. So you visited almost all Italy.
It was in the last 2 weeks. It was a good trip for 2 weeks. I was able to go to Bologna and Rome and some other places before. Sicily, I did the Etna convention before.
Okay.
I come to Italy every year. I love Italy.
Okay. So we can start the interview. Mirage Comics is reprinting probably one of your masterpieces, the first masterpiece of you, Kabuki. Just two questions about this book. So if you like this edition, and if you can, for the new readers, to tell us about the inspiration for the character, the genesis.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that Mirage Comics is publishing all the Kabuki volumes. Volume 1 is out now. There'll be 4 volumes of this. So like every 6 months a new volume. Hopefully we'll have volume 2 later in the year for Luca Comics. Hopefully we'll be back for Luca Comics at the end of the year with volume 2 of this. But there'll be 4 of these that'll have the entirety of my Kabuki volumes. So this is my earliest comic book work all collected together. This story is what got me the opportunity, it's what got me to offer to start writing Daredevil at Marvel. And it's my earliest stuff that I was working on as a kid in college. I did this whole first volume as my senior thesis in college. And I've been doing
at college.
Yeah, it was being published while I was a student at college. I would turn it in for every class I could convince the teacher to accept it. You know, for my graphic design classes, for history, mythology, literature, bookmaking. I would try to make a case for why this satisfied the requirements of the class, and it's what I was focused on doing.
Okay.
David, your style is a sophisticated combination of different technique. It was difficult at the beginning of your career, moving from indie press to mainstream publishers like Marvel. It was difficult to keep intact your artistic vision.
Well, I'm very grateful that I had time to develop on my own with my independent comic book publishing company, doing my creator-owned books. So I got to just do a lot of my own stories with Kabuki and allow the story to direct and drive how I developed as a creator. And I think that was really good for me, rather than if I started at Marvel or started at a bigger publisher. I think some people feel a sense of expectation that they might have to follow what they perceive as a house style, but I didn't feel that way. So I had a large enough body of work with Kabuki that when I was hired by Marvel as a writer on Daredevil, I felt like they hired me based on my body of work already. And then when they asked me to do some art for it, at first Joe Quesada hired me. Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti were doing the art on Daredevil, and I took over writing after Kevin Smith. And then Joe said, "Why don't you do some covers? Because you do art too." And I did say, like, "Oh, no one at Marvel wants to see my artwork. You know, I'm happy to write it, and they want to see your artwork." And I'm really grateful that Joe insisted that I do covers to start with. And so I just did the work that I do, and that's what they wanted from me, and I'm grateful for that. So I didn't feel that I had to change so much. I felt like, I think some people think that way, but my experience is that they want you to be doing something different, and they want to hire you based on doing something different. And I think the best way to get hired by a larger company is to establish yourself in a unique way that's different from everyone else.
Staying with Daredevil, when you developed the character of Iko, you decided to avoid to create a mirror. So, but in any case, you try to find a balance between the blindness of Daredevil and the deafness of Maya Lopez. Which is the reason for this decision?
Yeah, so I was writing Daredevil. Joe Quesada said, write any Daredevil story you want. But he said, he just asked one thing, and that's that a brand new character was created. Because he said, everyone who starts writing Daredevil, they all want to do the same characters, you know. Elektra, Bullseye, Wilson Fisk, you know, and he said, you know, Kingpin's kind of borrowed from Spider-Man, and, you know, let's introduce a new character in the story. So that was the challenge. I'm really grateful that Joe said that. And I felt like Daredevil perceives the world differently than a lot of other people do. And so I thought it would be interesting if there was another character that perceived the world in a different way also. So he would be able to connect to that character in that they both felt different from a lot of other people of how they viewed the world. But as you said, this character perceives the majority of her information of the world from vision and not from audio, where Daredevil gets a lot of his information, pieces the puzzle together from audio, not from vision.
Yes.
So I thought they would be able to relate to each other in that they were different from how other people experience the world, but it would be interesting that they would also kind of miss each other, and there would be a opportunity for misunderstanding at the same time. I thought it would be an interesting dynamic to explore.
Yes, yes.
David, let's talk about your collaboration with Brian Michael Bendis. You are very close friends. If I remember correctly, you worked together for the first time on a story arc of Daredevil called Wake Up, that I remember fondly, Wake Up on the Daredevil story arc. Can you tell us something about the chemistry between you and Brian? And one question, it's easier or more difficult to work with a friend?
Yeah, thanks for asking me about Brian Michael Bendis. Yeah, Brian Bendis and I have been best friends since 1993. We met each other at a convention in Chicago. I was writing Kabuki. I was looking for an artist to draw it. When I met Brian, he was writing and drawing his crime comics, and he showed me one of his crime comics. And I suggested that his inking use more shadows because it was sort of a crime noir story, and he really liked my inking advice. At the time, Brian was getting jobs as a penciler.
Yes.
And so he the first time I met him, he got me a job as his inker. So in the early 90s, we worked as a penciler inker team on multiple independent projects that I probably shouldn't mention because you shouldn't go look for them. They're not good, but it was us learning. You know, we did a H.P. Lovecraft Call of Cthulhu together as a penciler inker team. A few different projects at Caliber Comics. We did a Dracula series together. We did a variety of things together as a penciler inker team, and we worked really well together. So, and Brian was initially going to be the artist for Kabuki early on. So I have early, like 1993 Kabuki art from Brian Bendis from this. So we were doing our creator-owned independent projects, and then from Kabuki, I got the offer to write Daredevil. And as I said before, Joe Quesada asked me to do the covers, and I said, oh no, they only want to see your art. He goes, well, you do the first cover on your own, and the other covers you and I will collaborate on. And so this is before email or scanners. This is in the 1990s.
Yes.
So I would do a layout for the Daredevil cover. Joe Quesada would pencil it, Palmiotti would ink it, and then they would send it to me in a FedEx box, and I would take the original and I would paint directly on it, you know, and hope that I don't ruin it, put it back in FedEx and send it back, right? So in the FedEx box, I put Brian's independent black and white comics in the FedEx box. I put his 4-issue Torso series.
Okay.
He did a crime series called Torso. It's in black and white.
Yes.
He drew it. So I sent it to Quesada. I sent the package,
Yeah,
you know.
Torso-
It's like a Trojan horse,
Torso
right?
was about a serial killer in Cleveland, if I remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Quesada calls me and says, hey, I got the cover in the FedEx, but what are all these black and white indie comics? And I said, oh, that's my best friend, Brian Bendis. These are his comics, you know, we're working together. I thought I should show you.
Okay.
And he goes, I don't really like his artwork. And I said, well, read the books anyway. Maybe you'll like the books. And he called back and he said, I do think he has potential as a writer. And at the time, you know, I was writing Daredevil, Joe was drawing it, but he had become editor-in-chief of Marvel. And so the books were becoming late because he had to do the whole editor-in-chief job, and he didn't really have time to pencil on it.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So he asked me, like, hey, you know, you're writing Daredevil, can you just take over the art also? And I said, well, yeah, you know, I'm doing Kabuki at the same time at Image Comics. That's a lot of. I was like, how about, you know, I work with Brian because So basically, I went from Daredevil writer and I took a job as Daredevil artist on the next issue, just to get my friend Brian Bendis a job as the writer for us to work together, which is the Wake Up story that you were talking about. So that was our first work at Marvel, and that got Brian the opportunity to pitch for Ultimate Spider-Man, and then we did Alias with Jessica Jones, and I did covers on that with him. Then we co-wrote Daredevil End of Days together. So we had done a lot of work together over the years, independent and at Marvel. And then finally we did a creator-owned series together called Cover that Brian and we get to friends for over 30 years and finally do our own series that we created entirely together.
That is my next question, so I can ask now. It was difficult after so many years to find the same chemistry working together with Brian.
You know, I felt like every project we did had its own chemistry to it. It wasn't difficult to work with him. It was always a joy to work with Brian. He's a really good collaborator. He brings a lot to it, but then he also wants the collaborator to feel comfortable to have enough room to express themselves as well, which I really appreciate. You know, I've learned a lot from Brian about how to communicate effectively and diplomatically with other collaborators. He's really good at that. This was a joy to work on together.
Okay, the last question is about this new book with Mirage. It's a collaboration with several authors. Could you tell us about anything about this book?
Yeah, so all of these books are published by Mirage, which is Francesco Marco Antonini is the publisher. And I met him at Como 2 years ago, and just 1 year later, he had like 4 of my books collected in a hardcover. And now 2 years later, he's got all these other books, including Dark Shots, including Kabuki collections. Our mutual friend, Federico Mele, put a lot of these stories together. It's an anthology that Federico chose different artists and suggested like different possible story ideas. And he sent me like a list of like 6 different story ideas. Each one just had like a line or 2. And then the very last one, I said, let's do that one together. and it ended up being he ended up using the cover based on our story as well for my cover of Dark Shots. But yeah, it's, as far as I know, it's a lot of Italian creators in here. Sarah Pichelli is in here also, who worked with Bendis creating Miles Morales.
Yes.
So it's an incredible collaboration with wonderful collaborators from Italy.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's a joy. Thanks for all your help here.